And welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It is Monday, March 25th, 2024. At 7:02 p.m. we are called to order. Would all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I see everybody has received the packet. Are there any revisions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Next up, approval of the minutes. The minutes are printed on pages 5 through 8 of the packet. Are there any revisions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to approve the minutes as distributed?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Next up, we have time for visitor comments. We have on our schedule time for visitors who'd like to make comments on agenda items. Is there any visitor who'd like to address the council on any agenda item? Hearing none, we have time for general visitor comments. Is there any visitor who'd like to address the council on any matter whatsoever? Charlie?
I was here. My name is Charlie Putnam. I live at 913 South Front Street here in St. Peter. And a couple weeks ago I was in here with my neighbors and we have some concern about the amount of traffic, which is, there's plenty of reasons for that, but also the speed at which they seem to travel in excess of 30 miles an hour. I mean, more like typically seeing them going 40, 45 or worse, and that's not uncommon. There was some talk about pedestrians and not that many children living in the building, and I started thinking about my days at the state hospital and having some driver's education there. They talked about what can happen when two cars going even 30 miles an hour collide. And it can get pretty serious, even at that speed. And the speeds are in excess of that, typically, honestly. And I can look out the living room window at any time and see people zipping by. I know they're not going 30 miles an hour. So, with that, there's a lot of traffic and that's going too fast. I've asked if there's been any conversation about that since I was here.
It was not on our last workshop agenda, and so we haven't had any chance to discuss it as a council yet. I expect it'll be on an upcoming, either next week or the following workshop. So we'll do a workshop next week, and then we have a meeting the following, and then a workshop is kind of our cycle of work.
Madam Mayor, if I can, and Mr. Putnam, I will mention, as you have noticed, and I'm confident that at least one of your neighbors has noticed, we have been doing data gathering in that area, and there have been a number of squad cars in that area, and so that work is going on. I can tell you the process for modifying signs in addition to the council's direction relates to having the city public works director, the city engineer, and the police chief look at that data and help suggest if there are opportunities to do that. Just to be clear and to make sure that I at least speak coherently related to expectations and what can go on, is that it is very clear from an engineering perspective that stop signs are not to be used for speed control. We would also want to gather data related to the amount of speed. And as I mentioned, you've seen squad cars hanging around in that area and they've been logging the speed. So part of it is the data collection that goes on with that to justify any modifications that might be suggested or asked for by the council. The last thing that I'd mention is that I think the council faces challenges related to signage of all types on all streets, because every neighborhood would like a stop sign on their block, but that isn't practical and frankly is counterintuitive at times. And then even if it's not on every block, there is a question of what's the right type of signage and where should it be located to be most effective. And the data suggests that we see very often through a number of engineering studies that have been done, that making roadways feel tighter has an impact on the speed of drivers, much more so than does signage, especially for locals, who we sometimes, after we've driven it for a long time, lose track of those signs, and they've just become part of the landscape. And so if we want to have an effective solution in your neighborhood, I think what we're doing related to gathering data is a great place to start for that. And so that'll get shared with the council in the next cycles.
Study that was done with a couple of people about what you were talking about with just like painting lines on the road.
You bet.
That helps the mindset of people, and it slowed people from an average of 45, I believe, down to 25 miles an hour.
Yeah, there are many more effective strategies than just stop signs.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm up for anything.
Yeah.
I just would like to
Yep.
see that. I would like to have be
Mr.
on
Putnam, if
a
I
safer
could-
street than I grew up on, or that I've lived on for 40 years.
If I could, I'm not sure who you shared that with, but I know that I'd love to have you send that to me so that I can share that with the staff as well, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for your effort.
All right. I think that there's probably nobody else in the audience who'd like to address us, so we're going to move on to the approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins with a memo on page, starts on page 7 of the packet and concludes with the resolution on page 30. We do have one addition to the consent agenda, and everybody should receive a copy of this. It will be added to the packet on the website in the next few days. This is the addition of a utility laborer appointment, which would go under item number 2 on the consent agenda resolution. Does everybody
And
have a
Madam Mayor,
chance to look
that's
at
just
that?
one that I did not get into the packet for you.
Okay. The consent agenda includes the following budgeted purchases: the electric pump from Harmonics Correction Unit in the amount of $65,250 from the Water Fund. The following employee appointments: Jamie Schmidt as a maintenance engineer, Keisha Seiss,
Correct.
assistant to the city administrator, and Clayton Main, utility laborer. The wages are indicated in the packet. And a correction to pay for Trenton Evgen, apprentice lineman. The correct pay is $32.98 per hour. And the schedule of disbursements for February 22nd through March 20th. Are there any corrections or questions about the consent agenda? Carrie?
Well, I just have a comment. I just noticed in the last several packets, when we have the employee appointments and we're listing how many interviews or candidates that were considered, it just seems like we have a really good applicant pool or good candidate pool. And so that's just such a great sign that we have options and can consider many candidates for these really important positions at the city.
Absolutely. Other questions or discussion? Hearing nothing further, the resolution approving the consent agenda is on page 30 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Ranth.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. We have no items of unfinished business tonight, so we will move on to new business. The first item is adoption of a resolution entering into a development agreement with Miller Construction for lots in Traverse Green subdivision. And Ben is here to talk to us about that.
Thank you, Mayor Noel and members of the council. So on page 31 is the memo, and just for a little background, the city was involved in development of single-family residential neighborhoods all the way back to the early 2000s. So Nicollet Meadows was established in 2000, 2001. That was a 77 lot development, and that obviously is full. Washington Terrace was a few years later, in 03 and 04. That was an 87 lot neighborhood, and that one obviously is full as well. About a decade later, Traverse Green came about, and that was in 2016, 2017, with 63 lots. Originally it was 59. We added a few more last year. So this has been a successful endeavor of the city in doing these residential districts, and we want to continue that. Currently, if you look at Traverse Green, and there was a handout that was given to you on the most up-to-dated stats, is the vacant lots that are remaining. As far as large lots, there's really only one lot left in that development that would be considered a large lot, and that's outlined in that corner there, that pie-shaped one. And the rest would be medium lots. There's 7 reserved and 0 available. And in the interior of Traverse Green, there really is 14 lots available still. So there just isn't much left in Traverse Green. All 3 of those developments were based on what's called the Building Better Neighborhoods development. And what that did was kind of 5 things. It brought in new tax base, increased public utility use, provided population growth, it added school-age children to the schools, and it offered new housing opportunities for the entire community. So typically in planning, we try to have a 2 to 3 year inventory of lots available. And there's not only a shortage in Traverse Green, but throughout the whole city, especially of these medium and larger size lots. The city does own 46 acres of land north of the Traverse Green subdivision. So within the last few years, the council has authorized an incentive program to come up with a couple partners to develop this area. Here at the end of last year, we had Miller Homes that came and we talked. They looked at the lot price estimates. They looked at the concept plan, which is shown on the attachment. And here this month, we had Miller Homes become a partner. They signed the development agreement that we'll be going over, and they paid $30,000, which is 20% of the engineering fees that's going towards the Cullen Street project. And on the map, you can see that they have reserved the eastern parts of Cullen Street, and then the southwestern part of Cullen Street across from the park. So tonight, really, we're looking at the development agreement with Miller Homes, and the first 4 bullet points are associated to the development area, kind of setting up the basis for the agreement, the land price, the outstanding assessments, which relates back to Clark Street and Nicollet Avenue, and then the engineer's estimate. So in the development agreement is it talks about the project bid results. So both parties can abandon the project if the bids come in too high. Miller also agrees to waive its right to appeal any future assessments. There would be 42 lots approximately in this lot layout, and they would range in size mostly over 10,000 square feet with 72 to 90 foot wide lots. The city would take the lead on the platting, and then Miller would agree to construct 12 new homes by 2028, and then the rest by 2039. They've agreed to do 26 homes. There would be some covenants to set up some restrictions for what could be put out in this neighborhood to ensure that we have around 300,000 plus dollar homes. And as far as an incentive for Miller, they can defer the assessment to closing. Some landscaping would be required. They'll have to establish turf and put in at least 1 tree in the front yard, and they would be required to do a $355 parkland dedication fee. So this is an agreement that the city attorney has looked at, city staff has looked at, and we would recommend approval of, and the resolution for this is on page 34. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Ben. Questions regarding this item?
Carrie?
I have a question. If those are curious and they're listening in and they see that we have a covenant regarding ensuring, homes in the 300 plus range, why would that be important in a development agreement like this?
So a couple things. One, if a person was to build out here, say they put a $320,000 house out there, they want to assure that their neighbors across the street and nearby would also have similar houses, just to keep the values the same, to keep property values up. So it's just to ensure the future homeowners of the types of houses that could be put up there. Obviously, you could could put up larger houses or more expensive houses as well. But these are going to be kind of mid-range houses. $300,000 is kind of mid-range now, and we're already seeing some people that are moving into Cook Street at these price ranges are, if they're from town, they're opening up other houses in town, and so it's kind of circular. We want to make sure that there's a lot of housing opportunities for people, and then that also opens up maybe other houses in town that may be at a more affordable range for people.
And I think we've been pretty thoughtful about having a mix of housing, not just focusing on one sector of housing, but having a diverse set of housing in whatever ways that we can incentivize that and push for that in this limited time when we have a few levers to pull with housing. But I think it's really important to be thoughtful about that diversified mix, affordable to higher end.
And, Brad and then Dustin.
Go ahead, did you have?
Oh, no, I was just going to kind of agree with Carrie that we do work hard and we think about housing holistically and having a mix of something that serves, hopefully everybody can find something that meets their needs in St. Peter, and that St. Peter isn't alone in terms of housing challenges. It's statewide. When you go to different League of Minnesota Cities or Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, everybody, housing is top of mind for everybody. Yeah.
So I guess I had a question. So I'm assuming that there would also be that these would only be single-family homes?
Correct.
And so I guess question I would have, because obviously we're building out the multifamily in Traverse Green at this point, would this covenant extend to the rest of the development of this parcel here to prevent any the existence of multifamily homes through the rest of this?
Right now, this would just be for what the map is showing, those
So just
40
on
42
Cullen Street?
lots. And then if it goes well, could continue that same covenants over.
Well,
If-
my concern is actually continuing the covenant over to the other properties, in the fact that obviously for example, along Clark Street, there, the owners of the Traverse Green Apartments haven't been building their multifamilies that they encouraged, whereas we're starting to see development in Traverse Green.
Yep.
My question is, what are we going to do for multifamily options once the Traverse Green, like the duplexes and stuff, are built? I guess that's something I have a concern about, extending, this single family to the entire area when we don't have other spots for like duplexes, triplexes, and the like. So
if I may jump in.
Yep.
I think there's opportunity to develop this in the way that you think is appropriate. And in relation to the covenants would be only for the area that would be newly platted. And so generally the lots that you see on the screen or on page 33.
Yep. I
think this is a great middle ground in that it provides the opportunity as the marketplace shifts or changes, which frankly it certainly will. What way it's going to shift or change, I'm not sure, but I know that it will. And so as you see future development or future demands moving from Cullen Street to the east, if the council is part of the development, if you just don't outright sell it, you will have the opportunity to provide for covenants as a part of that. I would also mention that covenants do a number of different things, but there certainly are other items related to land use and land use rules that impact ability for duplexes, triplexes, and multifamily, which have to be taken into consideration. I'd also say that from a staff perspective, as this neighborhood was planned, really starting now 8 or 10 years ago, the overall idea was to continue to have the opportunity for inclusionary housing, which is a part of your comprehensive plan. And while that doesn't specify that Lot A is a duplex and Lot C is a triplex, what it does say, and what we try to do as a part of the planning process, is ensure that there's housing across the continuum. And in this instance, that means not just R1 single-family homes, but there are rental opportunities as well throughout this. And I think you see that as a part of the development that's gone on Clark Street, where that area just south of Traverse Green Apartments is really set up well for duplexes or triplexes. And so I think this gives you the best of all of those worlds with opportunity for a change into the future, depending on where the marketplace goes.
Thank you.
Justin?
I was just going to commend you on a job well done. When we initially were looking at this for some of us that took office, now 2.5 years ago, we were looking at a situation where we were told we couldn't get builders to come in and that the housing market wasn't going anywhere, and that quite frankly isn't true. Look at what we've accomplished in the last 2 years. So nice job, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I'll second.
Justin's remarks. It's really, even going back to like 2020 when I came on the council, we were having a lot of discussions. It was, I would say maybe troubling is too strong a word, but concerning that we had Traverse Green and it wasn't filling and there weren't things actively happening in that area. And there's been a lot of staff time and effort dedicated to this. So thanks to you, Ben, and to Todd as well. Everybody all around who's put a lot of effort into it, Pete. And yeah.
I'll go get some low bids.
We'll do what we can, for sure.
Yeah. Any further questions or discussion?
Madam Mayor, if I can.
Yes.
I would not be doing my job if I did not mention that this comes with it a serious amount of risk. And so we've had a number of discussions about that. Council members have asked a number of questions about it. We talked about it 2 weeks ago, and we talked about the bidding process and what happens. But I want to make sure that you all understand and know, and I think we're doing the appropriate things to mitigate that risk. And at some point, I know it's been important for the council and the community to move forward on housing opportunities. And this is one of the ways that really the team has worked on since 2021 to try and make something go. But it is my job to say, there is some risk to this, and you're going to be issuing some debt. And we got to make sure that we can sell some lots. And I think we're doing everything that we can to mitigate that and to move forward appropriately based on the direction that you've wanted to go with housing. So.
I just want to make sure we're clear. And the developer is fine with us mandating sidewalks in the putting sidewalks in the neighborhood,
Yeah,
correct?
the goal is to have sidewalks on both sides of Cullen Street, yep.
And thank you. I just know there are sometimes developers are hesitant to do that, and just want to.
All right. If there's nothing further, the resolution approving development agreement with Miller Homes for the construction of new homes in the proposed Cullen Street development, Traverse Green, is on page 34 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rand.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpston.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Our next item of new business is the adoption of a resolution authorizing purchase of substation equipment and installation.
No, never is when I get up here.
Depends how you define.
Fun.
Madam Mayor and City Council, since you just approved that new subdivision, we need to get power out there. And so with this, as you guys are aware, we have worked on Front Street for quite a while here in the last few years, doing a variety of phasing and improvements. What we've done now is we've got the transformer on order. We still expect it to be here during late summer. This contract right here that we would enter with Harold Schultz Company out of Ralston, Nebraska, we have put together a package to install the transformer and the switch gear inside the substation to make this all work, get some different circuits and make stuff happen here. We did have 5 bidders that were opened and read. We did have one that was considerably lower. We do have experience working with Harold Schultz. He is the person going to supply the substation transformer. And so the engineer's estimate for this project was $440,000, and as you can see, their bid came in at $232,900. We did have our engineer go through the bids extensively and look at all the options available there. They do meet the requirements for that. We did have one bidder that was non-responsive, and what we mean by that is there were some exceptions in his bid that we could not partake in. And so with that, we are asking that you authorize Harold K. Schultz Company the opportunity to do the work for $232,900. There's a resolution on page 40 and 41 that authorizes that contract.
Thanks very much, Pete, and thanks for the comment about following up. When you see a bid that is that much lower than the others, you do kind of wonder, did they miss something or is something out of whack? But I'm glad to know that you followed up and were reassured. Brad?
So, yeah, I was also reassured, reading DGR and the fact that DGR has worked with them before, that was it. Because I had the same concerns initially that the mayor had. But then obviously DGR has experience with them and they felt very comfortable recommending. And the transformer itself, that came in under budget, under estimate as well.
It was just under $1 million. I think we had like 1.1 budgeted for that, and that came in a little under.
So it's nice to see that this project, it's obviously still expensive, but at least it's coming in within the expectations, and well, in this case, significantly under the estimate. So, good work. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? All right. Hearing nothing further, the resolution is, our first resolution. Do we have two resolutions on this one?
Just one.
Just one, okay.
It just carries over to 2 pages.
Gotcha, yep. Our resolution is on pages 40 through 41 of the packet, awarding a bid for Front Street Substation improvements. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, Pete's not going anywhere. We're going to talk about adoption of a resolution purchasing seal coating materials and installation.
Madam Mayor and City Council, a part of our street maintenance program is seal coating city streets. And this year we had budgeted around $171,000 for that purpose. We did receive bids. We had 3 qualified bidders participate. We have worked with all 3 of these companies in the past, and as you can see from the bids, you could tell who was very interested in working back with city staff on getting this accomplished. The low bid was from Allied Blacktopping Incorporated of Maple Grove, and they bid $3.65 per gallon. And as you're aware, what happens is they come by with a distributor and they coat the city street with oil, the CR2 that we use, and then rock is applied over the top of that and seals up our streets. We do a little bit of crack sealing before we do seal coating, so we get the water to stay out of the cracks and doesn't penetrate through the asphalt. We're very happy with the bid. It works really well in our budget, and what we're asking is that you approve the resolution on page 44.
Discussion. Hearing nothing further, the resolution awarding bid for 2024 street seal coat project is on page 44 through 45 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Pete. Next up, adoption of a resolution establishing a rebranding effort and new logo.
Mayor members, the information's contained starting on page 46 within your packet with some imagery to follow on pages 48 and for a few more pages after 48. The memo that I've included in your packet outlines the work that you've done really over the past 6+ months related to a rebranding effort and new imagery. Again, a new logo primarily related to that new imagery. There were 6 goals that were identified by the council as a part of this effort, and I won't go through those other than to say it might be important to note that the current logo, that what we commonly call the Skyline logo, has been in place in the city for now almost 40 years. And so I know the council here had discussions about, was it time for a change that represents a changing community, which you certainly have here in St. Peter. In addition to that, you took action to hire Lime Valley to do some work with you and had some great discussions. If I remember right, there were 6 or 7 discussions with the team there that really started in a very broad sense and narrowed down your interests in certain images and certain colors and certain fonts and a number of different things. And so you come to a conclusion on that. And that conclusion is what you see included in your packet starting on page 48. The purpose of the logo and the rebranding is really to identify the city as an organization. Now, I want to emphasize this. This isn't meant to be a logo for the community. This is meant to be a logo for the city organization. And so this is things that you'll see in the packet on the side of trucks or on letterhead or on hats or business cards, as an example, as a part of that logo and that rebranding effort, moving the entire process forward. The council's also been very clear that although it costs some money to do this work, that we aren't going to just change every logo or every image on every truck and every letter going forward, that this will be done through attrition, and that as we run out of letterhead, then we'll start to use new. As we repaint a water tower in its normal cycle, we'll put the new logo on the water tower. As a truck goes out of service and a new truck comes in, we'll put the new logo on the side of the new truck, not necessarily on the side of the old truck. And so people will see this not revolutionary, but evolutionary over the next couple of years as we see all those things come to fruition. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about this, but it's probably worthwhile to zoom in a little bit on some of the images here. And as I mentioned in the memo, and I want to mention tonight, because of the nature of computer screens and projectors and printers, these might not be true colors, but they give you a sense of the colors and the scheme that has been brought forward and the council's interested or has been interested in pursuing. This is one of the main utilizations you'll see. One of the other ones here that I'll get to, here's a black and white version, but I wanted to mention this one in particular. The current logo that you have does not work well within a number of digital platforms, and this is designed to work better within those digital platforms, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or in other places. And so we wanted to ensure, and Lime Valley has helped to make sure that we have something that works within that digital arena, so to speak. That wasn't the case, of course, 35 plus years ago when the first logo was put into place. You can see here that different departments, as we do now, can have different subtext. This might be, the top one might be on the side of a city pickup, or this one might, the middle one might be on the side of the recreation trailer that hauls all the fun noodles and balls and all those kind of things out to events that we have that are put on by the rec department. And of course, we don't have a department that's named name here, but you can kind of see the illustration of how that will work with other folks as well. You'll also see this logo, or at least the circle logo, on a little badge type in squad cars, on the edge of squad cars as well too, so to identify. You see some utilization related to clothing and other things that certainly will come forward and that we see utilized within the city all the time, including name tags on the front of buildings and all of those kind of things. There's an example of our website or maybe a Facebook utilization that shows how this could fit together pretty well. Mayor members, there's a resolution included in your packet on page 55, and it really directs the city administrator and staff to move forward with this, and it accepts the new logo as it's put forward and continues the Where History and Progress Meet tag that you've utilized for 35 plus years as well. So there is not only a connection with the new, but a connection with the history of St. Peter, which is not unimportant to the community and to all of you, I know, as well. Madam Mayor, happy to answer any additional questions that you might have to the best of my abilities.
Questions or discussion? Carrie?
Well, I was just going to add that I think we were really thoughtful too about accessibility and readability. Our previous logo had kind of scripty font, and just moving away from that I think was important in terms of readability for users, especially when we think about how much content we're looking at online, and so or on our computers or our screens, and so that has become more and more important over the years, to be really thoughtful about how accessible text is on devices. And so that's just something I wanted to add in terms of in addition to the justification we have here why we felt like this was the time to make the change.
Thanks. Other questions? Brett? Dustin?
Although I agreed with the idea that we needed to reevaluate our logo, and that having a logo that was from 35 years ago, when obviously no consideration was needed for how it would go on digital platforms or space, I agreed with that. I have been in the minority. I have not liked this logo from the beginning, and none of the discussions have changed my mind on that.
Thanks. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing nothing further, the resolution approving rebranding, use of a new logo and style standards, and retaining the use of the tagline "Where History and Progress Meet" is on pages 55 and 56 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Or second.
Oh, sorry.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rand.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
No.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of a resolution modifying the 2024 fee schedule.
Madam Mayor and City Council, asking for a simple modification to the fee schedule. City staff was approached in January and February with discussion about taking waste from one of our porta-potable toiletries at our wastewater plant. They had been hauling it to a different location, asked us if we would consider taking it. We've done some discussion with them, asked about the waste. Everything seems to be normal residential waste. Our simple modification is we didn't have a way to charge them for the volume and the normal dumping that we do for industrial and commercial customers. Item B under 109, you will see that there's a portable toilet waste per 600 gallons. That's the size of their tank that they haul from. They plan to dump anywhere between 1 and 3 times per day, possibly. So there's multiple dumps that we'll have to test and look at and get going with them, and that should make them happier, and it helps us too. I'm asking that you approve the resolution on page 59.
Any questions for Pete? Brad, well, let's start with Dustin and then Brad, since I usually do the reverse.
Did I just hear that right of the quantity of dumping?
Yep. In the summertime, they'll dump up to 3 times per day because they have hundreds, if not thousands, of porta pots out there. And then during the winter, maybe not at all. And spring and fall, when they get going, it'll be minimal until summer kicks in.
Okay.
I'll just get this out of the way first. Sounds like a crappy contract. And now that being said, you didn't. You missed the joke. And now that being said, so I do have a question. We just had an assessment that talks about all the work that our wastewater treatment facility needs.
Yep.
And that it's being stressed, and we're going to need to do these updates. How much stress is this going to put on our current system?
Shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Really, when you think about what the wastewater plant needs, it's more of a time and equipment equation. A lot of things just wear out after a while. Your wastewater plant's still performing on high function right now and doing everything that we needed to do. And our staff will keep it in that manner. This would probably just be more of a boost on the income side
Okay.
than it would be a load to the wastewater plant.
And then how long is this contract? Would this be renewed every year or just,
We'll have
I'm
to
just wondering
see.
if expenses go up, so.
We evaluate it. If it changes from normal residential sewage to a commercial or a higher grade sewage, we do have in the fee schedule BOD loading and TSS loading that we could implement with them. Right now, we don't see that in the strength of the wastewater they're delivering.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, he can talk about this more eloquently maybe than I can, but the council has, and our fees are set up, and we have taken waste from other activities as well.
Yes.
And on occasion, there's additional testing done to ensure that if there is that additional loading, we've got that covered and can charge appropriately for that.
Right.
Further discussion? Thanks, you guys covered, guys covered my questions, and so I don't have any questions. All right, the resolution modifying the 2024 fee schedule is on page 59 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rand.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Our last item of new business tonight, adoption of a resolution awarding bid for 2024 Pine Street improvements from South Washington Avenue to South Minnesota Avenue project. Hey, Pete.
Madam Mayor and City Council. Usually we would bring this back to you at the end of 30 days after our public meeting. But because we have only one contested hearing or one contested assessment on that, we know what the risk is for that. That's similar to what we encountered when we did North Third Street. And so we know where that problem is and that we can deal with that problem. It still has steps to go through in order for us to take action. But we did receive really good bids for this project, and the contractor would like to get going if at all possible. We're asking tonight that you award the contract to Dirt Merchant from Mankato in the amount of $1,191,198.25. This is a couple $100,000 underneath the engineer's estimate. And as you can see from the other bids there, we feel that that was a very good estimate and a very good price for us to get going on. We're asking that you approve the resolution on page 62 and that we begin the work on Pine Street.
Questions for Pete? Brad?
Similar to the transformer project, you're familiar, I mean, Dirt Merchant, we worked with multiple times.
We
They
have.
did the Pine Street project, correct?
Yep, they did Park Row for us.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, Park, yeah,
And they've
Park Row.
done-
Sorry, that's what I was thinking.
And they've done both roundabouts at Sunrise and Broadway and Old Minnesota and St. Julian Street for us too.
Thank you.
I guess I have a follow-up regarding the one contested assessment. Even if a resident, even if we had multiple assessments being contested, that doesn't mean that the city can't move forward with the project. One contesting can't hold up a whole project, so we're safe to go forward, and they can continue their process. We're not impinging on their rights to contest an assessment, basically, is what I'm trying to say by moving forward with this, correct?
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
Ability. All right, super. Additional questions? Hearing nothing further, the resolution awarding bid for 2024 Pine Street improvements from South Washington Avenue to South Minnesota Avenue project is on page 62 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Thank
Thank you. We will move on to reports. I have one report item tonight, which is the proclamation declaring Vietnam Veterans Day. Whereas the United States of America began military operations in the country of Vietnam on January 12, 1962, and whereas American involvement in the Vietnam War continued until the last American troops were evacuated from Vietnam on March 29, 1973, and whereas more than 58,000 military men and women gave their lives in service to our nation during the Vietnam War, and whereas veterans of the Vietnam War deserve to be shown respect and dignity of a grateful nation, and whereas Minnesota honors the sacrifice of these veterans and respects their dedication to the highest traditions of our armed forces, and whereas our nation stands stronger for the service of these veterans and Minnesota stands ready to honor their proud legacy with our deepest gratitude, now, therefore, I, Shannon A. Noel, Mayor of the City of St. Peter, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim March 29th, 2024 as Vietnam Veterans Day in the city, and hereby do encourage St. Peter residents to honor sacrifices made by all veterans of the Vietnam War by attending the Vietnam Veterans Day ceremonies. Those ceremony will be held on March 29th, that's Good Friday, and I believe that's at 4 o'clock. Is that going to be on the city website, or I want to make sure I give the right time here.
I believe it will be on the chamber website, their community calendar as well.
Thank you. The chamber website, I believe it's at 5 o'clock as I check my calendar. Anyway, that's my only report item tonight. We're going to move on to reports of council members, and I believe Carrie and Dustin were going to make some comments. Dustin raised his hand first.
I don't know if I was first, but last week, the three of us, sorry, for those who aren't looking, Representative Johnson, Mayor Noel, and myself went to meet with lawmakers. and we specifically spoke about our bonding request for Gorman Park to try finishing that project. At this point in time, we're seeking approximately $1.2 million, which would make that project fully funded without asking for any local tax revenue. We also talked about our wastewater treatment facility and that we know we have some substantial repairs and upgrades that are going to need to be done. And we communicated that we would like to have some form of state assistance. It was received pretty well. And we just shared that, we don't want to be penalized as a community because we've been on top of getting these things repaired versus other communities that have waited until it was essentially ready to explode. And then they were able to obtain state funding.
I don't have a whole lot to add other than the first part of the day is a conference where we're getting updates on what's happening at the legislature. So just like last year, this year, there has been a lot of activity. There's been 5,000 bills introduced, which is a lot. And so for us to go up to the Capitol as council members and as your elected officials, it's really important, while we have the support of our representatives for these projects, when they're being pulled in a lot of different directions and they're meeting with a lot of different people, just keeping our local projects top of mind for them is really important. So while they meet with us here in St. Peter, it's important that we go to them as well so that there's many opportunities over the legislative session to talk about our projects and make sure that it's front and center for them. And it's always great to have, Mayor Noel, you come, but then also Councilmember Sharstrom is the liaison to the Parks Board, and so having that additional insight on that work, since that's kind of our priority project right now, is really helpful. So it was great that all three of us could go and advocate for our local projects.
Thank you, Carrie. It was a great day, very good use of our time, and so thanks to the two of you for going up there and representing St. Peter really well with our elected representatives up at the Capitol. So, any other council member reports tonight? Hearing nothing further, we will move on to reports from the city administrator.
Madam Mayor, I don't have any additional reports, but I do have a request under item G for new business.
All right. Are we going to deal with the executive session resolution first?
Within your packet on page 64, I'm requesting a closed session under Minnesota Statute 13D related to contract negotiations for LELS 242, which is your communication technicians, or what we commonly refer to as your dispatchers. And so I'm asking for a closed session. I am anticipating that there is potential for you to come back in a regular session to take action on that contract. And then to adjourn the meeting after that.
All right, so sometimes we go downstairs when we go into closed session. Today, we're going to stay right here. We'll come back into open session to take action.
Yeah, I anticipate you coming back and take action potentially on that contract and certainly to adjourn.
All right. Let's see, the resolution calling for a closed session is on page 64 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Rampt?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
All right, that resolution is approved. It is 7:50 p.m. and we will adjourn into closed session. Good evening. We are returning to open session. We are called to order at 8:04 p.m. This is the City of St. Peter, Minnesota council meeting on March 25th, 2024. And we are going to discuss law enforcement labor services number 242 communication technicians.
Members, there's information that I provided to you based on the previous closed session. I have a contract in front of you that I'm recommending approval. It's a one-year contract with our communication technicians, or what we commonly call our dispatchers. So the most significant issues in the contract are that it would be a one-year contract. There would be across the board wage increase of 4% for all participants within all the classifications. There would be a slight increase of $50 with the uniform allowance, and changes to increase uniformity with non-union and other contracts related to comp time, bereavement leave, vacation accrual, and holiday recognition and pay. And there are always some technical changes, the right names, changing dates, those types of things that are always part of this as well. Again, the information is included in your packet, and sorry, Madam Mayor, I don't have the copy of the resolution attached to that. But typically, we have a resolution that directs the mayor and city administrator to enter into this collective bargaining agreement with LES 242.
Questions for Todd? Obviously, we were just in executive session discussing this, and so I don't have any questions, and if there's no further discussion, we are asked to approve the resolution for execution of a collective bargaining agreement with Law Enforcement Labor Services Local Number 242 for the year 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rand.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpsburg.
Aye.
Councilmember DeRosa.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye. The resolution is approved. That was our last item of business tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any